Today, we're diving into the absolutely wild engineering story behind Deep Dive Dubai. It's a project that's all about ambition, world records, and a whole series of crises that almost sank the entire thing before a single drop of water even went in.
So just imagine this. You spend 3 years digging a massive hole to build the world's deepest pool. You are right on the edge of success. And then you get some news that changes absolutely everything. Suddenly, you're forced to go even deeper, fighting the actual laws of physics just to get your goal back. That's the crazy challenge at the very heart of this story. The final result? Well, it's a pool that plunges 60 meters. That's about 197 feet straight down into the earth. To put that in perspective, that is deep enough to swallow a whole 15-story building. And to fill that enormous space, get this, it took 14 million liters of water. That's the same as 6 Olympic-sized swimming pools. The scale here is just mind-boggling, but believe me, the journey to get there was the real challenge.
So, where did this whole idea come from? Well, the vision for this colossal project really started with Dubai's obsession with breaking world records. It was actually a personal goal for the Crown Prince, Sheikh Hamdan, who wanted to create a diving experience that was unlike anything else on the entire planet.
But here's the thing, it couldn't just be a deep hole in the ground. No way. The Crown Prince was really clear that the design had to honor the region's history. You see, before oil, Dubai's entire economy was built on pearl diving. So the architects designed the whole building to look like a giant open oyster shell.
The very first major decision they had to make was where to build it. An above-ground building would have been so much easier, but that created 2 huge problems. First, to even qualify for the Guinness World Record, the pool had to be built in the ground. That was a deal breaker. And second, Dubai's intense heat would have been a constant battle. So really, the only option was to start digging.
And of course, that decision led them straight into their first massive obstacle. You can't just dig a 147-foot hole in sandy, waterlogged ground and, hope it stays open. They had to figure out a way to build the walls of the pool first before any of the real digging could even start.
The solution was this incredible piece of engineering called a diaphragm wall. Okay, so you're basically building a massive reinforced concrete cylinder in the ground first, and only after that's done do you start excavating the dirt from inside it. It's like building a fortress to hold back all the earth and water.
The whole process was just incredibly slow and careful. A special excavator would dig a really narrow trench. Then this massive steel cage would be lowered inside, and only then was it filled with concrete. And that formed just one single panel. They had to repeat this over and over in sections for more than 2 months just to create the full circle. But of course, even this incredible wall wasn't perfect. After digging down just 8 meters, they hit a major crisis. Because the wall was built in all these separate sections, there were tiny gaps between the panels. And the immense pressure from the groundwater all around them started forcing water right into the construction site. The solution was just pure brute force. They installed these powerful pumps that ran non-stop, 24/7 for 2 straight years, just to keep the site from flooding. During all that time, crews dug out 45,000 tons of earth, and only then, with the pit finally empty, could they spend months painstakingly waterproofing the entire wall from the inside to finally seal all the leaks. Okay, so after 3 years of fighting groundwater and just digging and digging, the team finally had their 45-meter deep pit. They were on the home stretch. And then, disaster struck. And it came in the form of news from halfway across the world.
The news was that a new diving pool called Deep Spot had just opened near Warsaw, Poland. And because these huge projects are often developed in total secret to keep a competitive edge, the Dubai team was completely and totally blindsided.
Deep Spot was 45 meters deep, the exact depth they had just spent 3 years building. Their world record was gone before they even had a chance to claim it. The Crown Prince's order was simple: get the record back. They had to go deeper.
But going deeper wasn't just about digging another 15 meters. Oh no. At that kind of depth, they weren't just fighting sand and rock anymore. They were fighting a massive, invisible force of nature: buoyancy. You see, the giant concrete pool was basically a huge empty bucket sitting in waterlogged ground. And that groundwater was pushing up with this colossal pressure, the buoyancy force, constantly trying to shove the entire structure right out of the ground. The original 45-meter plan had accounted for this, but going down to 60 meters, that changed all the calculations.
A perfect way to picture it is trying to hold an empty, sealed water bottle at the bottom of a full bathtub. The water just relentlessly pushes it to the surface, right? Now imagine that bottle is a 60-meter-deep concrete structure. The entire project was at risk of literally popping out of the earth.
The engineers came up with this really brilliant two-part solution. First, they made the extra 15-meter shaft much narrower. This reduced the surface area at the very bottom, which gave the buoyancy force less to push against. And second, they installed these special anchors called under-reaming bases deep into the bedrock, basically bolting the entire structure to the earth. So with a 60-meter structure finally built, a new and really urgent threat popped up. Every single second the pool sat empty, that upward buoyancy force was straining against the anchors. It was a ticking time bomb. The only way to fight that upward push was with the downward weight of water itself. They had to fill it, and they had to fill it fast.
The problem was all about speed. Just using the city's water supply was going to take a dangerously long 3 months. They just didn't have that kind of time. So they launched this massive logistical operation, bringing in a fleet of over 100 water tankers to work around the clock. And even with that huge effort, it still took an entire month to fill the pool and finally make the structure secure.
So once the water was finally in and the structure was stable, all the heavy engineering was done. But the work was far from over. Now they had to turn this deep concrete shaft into a breathtaking underwater world.
The team built a whole sunken city before they filled the pool, but adding the water created all these brand new problems. Some of the props started to float and had to be drilled into and weighted down. And to keep all 14 million liters of water perfectly clean, they installed this incredible filtration system developed with some help from NASA that recycles the entire volume of water every 6 hours. And the final cost for this record-breaking feat of engineering? Well, the Dubai government has never actually released the official number. From their point of view, achieving this goal and creating a national landmark was, quite simply, priceless.
You know, beyond the records and the spectacle, projects like Deep Dive Dubai really redefine what's possible. They force innovation against what seem like impossible odds. It really makes you wonder, what is the true value of pushing engineering to its absolute limits?